There is a story history tries not to tell, a story whispered in locked rooms and buried in the margins of medical ledgers. It speaks of a time when sanity was a privilege, not a right, and a simple inconvenience could become a diagnosis. It begins with the rumble of carriage wheels on a gravel drive, approaching a grand facade of red brick and iron. Inside, the air is thick with the scent of boiled laundry and carbolic soap, a smell that clings to the very stones. A key turns in a lock, a sound like a snapping bone. This is the sound of a world ending. For the tens of thousands who passed through these doors in Victorian Britain, survival was not a matter of recovery, but of chance. The odds were not in their favor, and while you ray here, let me know in the comments where you ray watching from and what time it is right now. I love seeing this community light up across the map. Now, the story begins. The morning light is pale and thin as it filters through the lace curtains of the drawing room. Eleanor sits perfectly still on the edge of a velvet-upholstered chair, her hands clenched in her lap. Her husband, Arthur, stands by the fireplace, his back to her, studying the unlit logs. He has not looked at her all morning. The men sitting opposite her, a Dr. Finch with watery eyes and a scent of stale tobacco, smiles a practiced, sympathetic smile. He asks her questions she does not understand. He asks about her moods, her fancies, her recent melancholy since the stillbirth of her son. She tries to explain the grief, the hollowness that has taken root inside her, but the words feel clumsy, heavy. Arthur had called it a female malady. He had said she needed rest. Dr. Finch nods, making a note in a small leather-bound book. He asks if she ever feels a sense of confusion, if she has trouble distinguishing her dreams from her waking life. She hesitates. Grief is a confusing country, but mad? The word hangs unspoken in the silent room. Arthur finally turns, his face a mask of weary concern. She has her episodes, doctor. We are deeply worried for her safety, for her reason. It is a perfectly delivered line, rehearsed and polished. A sudden, cold clarity pierces Eleanor's fog of sorrow. This is not a consultation, it is a sentencing. She watches as the doctor dips his pen in a portable inkwell. He scratches a few lines onto a crisp document. From the hallway, she hears a faint shuffling sound, the housemaid, she thinks, clearing away the tea service. But then the drawing room door opens, and two men she has never seen before step inside. They are large, impassive, dressed in sturdy, functional clothes. They do not look at her as a woman, or even a person. They look at her as an object to be moved. The first emotional shock lands with the force of a physical blow. This has all been arranged. The grief she thought was being treated is, in fact, being disposed of. Panic, sharp and metallic, rises in her throat. She stands, her voice a reedy whisper. Arthur, what is this? He will not meet her eyes. He simply gestures to the man. Please, be gentle with her. This is how easily it happens. In the enlightened age of Queen Victoria, a new law has been passed, a piece of legislation celebrated as a great leap forward in compassionate care. The 1845 Lunacy Act. It is designed to protect the mentally ill, to ensure they are treated in specialized institutions rather than languishing in workhouses or prisons. It mandates the construction of vast, county-funded asylums across the country. But within this well-intentioned law lies a terrible, elegant trap. To commit someone, one needs only 2 signatures on a certificate of lunacy, one from a family member, one from a physician. The physician need not even be a specialist in mental maladies. The legal threshold is terrifyingly low, the language itself a cavern of ambiguity. The certificate requires only the assertion that the patient displays a deficiency of reason. A woman grieving too deeply, a wife who challenges her husband's authority, a daughter who inherits an inconvenient fortune, all can be found deficient. Scholars still debate the true motivations of the man who signed these papers. Were they genuinely convinced by the tearful pleas of a desperate husband? Were they complicit agents in the quiet removal of socially troublesome individuals? Or were they simply overworked, indifferent, and all too willing to accept a fee for a brief and profitable diagnosis? The truth, perhaps, is lost in the sheer volume of the paperwork, in the thousands upon thousands of lives filed away under classifications like hysteria, melancholia, or moral insanity. As the men lead Eleanor from the room, one on each arm, their grip firm but not yet brutal, she sees the certificate on the side table. She sees the looping signature of Dr. Finch, and below it, the stark, unforgiving hand of her husband. The law, which was supposed to be her shield, has become the very cage that entraps her. This is the second twist of the knife. The system itself is her accuser. The carriage ride is a blur of greens and grays. The familiar countryside gives way to starker, more desolate moorland. The asylum announces itself from miles away. It does not rise from the landscape so much as it conquers it, a monstrous testament to Victorian ambition. A sprawling city of red brick, slate roofs, and countless barred windows. A clock tower, stark against the grey sky, presides over the compound like a silent warden. This is not a hospital, it is a fortress. The great iron gates grind open, and the carriage rolls into a courtyard of immaculate, sterile neatness. The air here is different. It carries the scent of damp stone and something else, a faint, pervasive odor of human despair. As she is led towards a heavy oak door, she sees them for the first time. Figures in drab, uniform-like dresses and suits, walking in regimented lines in a walled garden. Their faces are slack, their eyes distant. Some talk to themselves, others stare at nothing at all. They are not the raving lunatics of popular fiction, they are simply empty, hollowed-out shells of people, and in their vacant stares, Eleanor sees her own future reflected. The third and most profound shock settles into her bones. She is one of them now. The oak door swings open. A gust of institutional air rushes out to meet her. A woman in a starched nurse's uniform, her face devoid of pity, steps forward. "Name?" she asks, her voice flat. Before Eleanor can answer, Arthur S. Mann hands over the papers. The nurse glances at the certificate. Another hysteric. "We have a place for her." The heavy door closes behind Eleanor. The sound echoes down the long, polished corridor, a note of absolute finality. The lock clicks shut, and the world she knew is gone forever. The oak door is a wall of silence. Behind it, the world that contained Arthur, her home, her name, ceases to exist. Before Eleanor is a corridor, impossibly long, its floor polished to a mirror sheen that reflects a distorted, elongated version of the barred windows high above. The air is cold, still, and layered with the smells of lye, boiled cabbage, and unwashed bodies. There is no welcome, no gentle introduction to this place of supposed healing. The first step in her cure is erasure. In a small, sterile room, her traveling clothes are taken from her. The silk dress, the leather boots, the delicate locket from her mother, all are bundled away, labeled, and stored. They are relics of a former life. She is ordered to strip and submerge herself in a bath of frigid, stinging water. It is not for cleanliness, but for shock. A way to jolt the melody from the system. She is handed a uniform, a shapeless, scratchy calico dress, thick woolen stockings, and heavy, hobnailed shoes that feel like lead weights. The fabric chafes her skin, a constant, irritating reminder of her new status. Her name is the final thing to be taken. On the ward ledger, she is not Eleanor. She is case number 734. The hope that this was a misunderstanding, a place of rest and recovery, dies in the cold, clinical efficiency of her own dispossession. The ward is a cavern of human sorrow. 30 iron-framed beds are arranged into perfect, unforgiving lines. There are no partitions, no screens, no shred of privacy. At night, she lies awake, listening to the symphony of the damned. A woman weeping softly into her pillow, another muttering a frantic, endless monologue to the ceiling. The sound of teeth grinding, of a distant, muffled shriek quickly silenced. The attendants, called nurses but acting as guards, patrol the aisles, their keys jangling from their waists. The sound a constant reminder of who is free and who is caged. The asylum operates on a philosophy known as moral treatment. It is a revolutionary idea, born from the belief that madness is not a demonic possession but a disease of the mind that can be cured. The therapy is order, the medicine is routine. Sanity, the theory goes, can be rebuilt through a rigid structure of work, prayer, and absolute discipline. But as the days bleed into one another, Eleanor discovers the dark truth behind this benevolent-sounding doctrine. The routine is not designed to heal, it is designed to break. The day begins before dawn, summoned from a shallow, restless sleep by the clanging of a brutal iron bell. The patients rise in silence, dress in the cold dark, and stand by their beds for inspection. Blankets must be folded to precise, geometric perfection. Any wrinkle earns a sharp rebuke or the loss of a meal. Breakfast is a bowl of thin, watery porridge, eaten in a vast dining hall where the clatter of spoons against earthenware is the only permitted sound. Conversation is forbidden. A shared glance can be mistaken for conspiracy. Then comes the work. The great Victorian asylum is a perfectly self-contained universe, a fringe economic model hidden behind walls of brick and sanity. It has its own farm, its own bakery, its own guessworks, and a colossal laundry that serves the institution and often the surrounding towns. It is a world powered by the free, inexhaustible labor of its inmates. Eleanor is assigned to the laundry. For 10 hours a day, she stands in a room thick with scalding steam, her hands plunged into tubs of caustic lye and boiling water. Her skin becomes raw, her fingernails split and bleed. She scrubs sheets, dresses, and the soiled linen of the incontinent, the work both physically punishing and deeply humiliating. This is not therapy, this is servitude. The realization dawns on her with crushing certainty. The asylum is not curing her, it is using her. One afternoon, a young woman working beside her, a girl named Mary with vacant, terrified eyes, begins to quietly hum a simple nursery rhyme. It is a fragile, broken sound, a tiny spark of memory from a world outside. For a moment, the oppressive rhythm of the laundry is broken. Eleanor feels a flicker of connection, a shared humanity. She offers the girl a small, encouraging smile. The supervising nurse sees it. She moves with a swift, predatory silence. She does not speak. She simply grabs Mary by the arm and twists it behind her back. The humming stops, replaced by a sharp cry of pain. Later that evening, Mary is not in her bed. Eleanor overhears two attendants talking. The girl had become agitated and was taken to the refractory ward, the ward for the most difficult patients. There, they say, she was put in a straight waistcoat to calm her nerves. This is the reality of moral treatment as failure. When routine and labor do not suffice, the old methods return. Mechanical restraints, solitary confinement in padded cells, the tranquilizer chair where a patient could be strapped for hours on end. These are the tools used to enforce the asylum as perfect, suffocating order. Any act of individuality, any memory of self, is not a symptom to be understood, but a rebellion to be crushed. A moment of kindness becomes a punishable offense. In its very design, the building is an instrument of control. The corridors are long and straight, allowing for maximum surveillance. The windows are tall and narrow, set high in the walls, letting in light but offering no view of the world beyond. The airing courts, where patients are allowed an hour of outdoor exercise, are enclosed by walls so high they block out the sun for half the day. One wonders, looking at the intricate blueprints, what the architects truly believed. Did they see these spaces as therapeutic landscapes, designed to calm a chaotic mind through sheer, geometric force? Or did they understand, on some level, that they were drawing the schematics for a human warehouse, a machine for managing and forgetting the unwanted? The question hangs in the silent, oppressive air of the place itself. Lying in her bed, Eleanor stares up at the vaulted ceiling, lost in the shadows. The person who arrived here just weeks ago is fading. The grief for her child, the anger at her husband's betrayal, even these powerful emotions are being worn smooth by the relentless, grinding routine. The system is working, it is emptying her. She is learning the great lesson of the asylum, to feel nothing, to want nothing, to be nothing. It is the only way to survive. Months turn into a year, the seasons change beyond the high asylum walls, but inside, time is a flat, stagnant pool. Eleanor has learned the rules. She has mastered the art of being invisible. She folds her blankets perfectly, she eats her porridge without complaint. She works in the scalding steam of the laundry until her mind is as numb as her hands. The fire of her grief has cooled to a dull, persistent ache. She is a model patient, which is to say, she is a ghost. But the definition of a cure is about to change. A new medical superintendent arrives. His name is Drive. Alistair Croft, a man who carries with him the scent of formaldehyde and ambition. He is a product of a new wave of thinking. He sees the asylum not as a sanctuary for moral correction, but as a laboratory for the human mind. To him, madness is not a spiritual failing but a biological flaw, a misfiring of the nerves, a congestion of the brain that can be physically attacked, purged, and conquered. The era of passive routine is over. The era of active intervention has begun. A new kind of fear, sharp and electric, ripples through the wards. The attendants stand straighter, the rules become stricter, and the whispers begin, of a new wing being opened, a place of strange machines and the sound of running water. Drive. Croft has a particular fascination with hydrotherapy. It is an ancient practice, reborn with the power of Victorian engineering. He believes water, applied with sufficient force and temperature, can shock the nervous system back into alignment. He sees it as a powerful weapon against the stubborn entrenchment of melancholia and the violent outbursts of mania. His new treatment suite is a cathedral of tiled walls and gleaming copper pipes. It is a place built for purging. Here, a patient might be strapped to a wooden chair while attendants aim fire hoses of ice-cold water at their head and chest, the force so great it leaves bruises on the skin. Or they might be blasted with needle-sharp jets of scalding water, a torment intended to stimulate a sluggish circulation. But Croft is a pioneer, and he has brought with him a more refined, more insidious device, the continuous bath. This is a fringe, experimental treatment for the chronically agitated. It consists of a long, coffin-like tub, into which a patient is lowered. A heavy canvas sheet with a hole for the head is then clamped down over the top, securing them in place. A system of pipes keeps the water circulating at a constant, tepid temperature. A patient can be kept in this state not for hours, but for days. Submerged, immobile, sensory deprived, they are meant to be soothed into a state of profound calm. In practice, it is a living burial. Eleanor's compliance is re-diagnosed. Her quiet despair, once seen as progress, is now labeled by Drive Croft as intractable melancholia. She is the perfect candidate for his new science. One morning, she is told she has been granted a great privilege. The superintendent himself will oversee her advanced treatment. There is no choice, no room for refusal. The nurses who laid her away have a new look in their eyes, not the usual bored indifference, but a flicker of something that might be pity, or perhaps just morbid curiosity. This is the ultimate betrayal. The very institution charged with her care is now her willing tormentor, and her suffering is framed as an opportunity. She is taken not to the hydrotherapy suite, but to a small, windowless room containing only a chair, a strange metal helmet covered in wires, and a humming electrical generator. Croft explains his theory with unnerving passion. He believes a controlled application of electricity can restart the brain, much like one might restart a stopped clock. He calls it Faradayization. He assures her it is perfectly safe. He is a man of science, and she is his subject. Eleanor is strapped into the chair. The cold metal cap is lowered onto her head. She sees the doctor nod to his assistant. She hears the crackle of a switch being thrown. And then, her world dissolves into a supernova of white-hot agony. It is not a shock she can scream through. It is an obliteration of thought, of self. Every nerve, every muscle, every memory is seized in an agonizing, violent convulsion. Her body arches against the leather straps with impossible force. A darkness consumes her. When she wakes, she is back on the ward, lying in her bed. The light from the high window hurts her eyes. Her head throbs with a pain so deep it feels structural. But that is not the worst of it. Her mind, once a landscape of grief, is now a shattered mirror. Memories are fragmented, sharp-edged pieces that no longer fit together. The face of her lost child is hazy. The sound of her husband's voice is gone. The treatment has not cured her sorrow, it has burned it out, and taken everything else with it. She tries to hold onto a thought, but it slips away like smoke. This is the cure: avoid. The treatment has succeeded only in shattering the person he was trying to save. The question of motive haunts the legacy of men like Drive, Croft, or these doctors, with their water cannons, their electrical machines, and their scalpels poised over the frontal lobe, truly driven by a benevolent desire to heal. Did they lie awake at night, convinced they were on the threshold of a great discovery that would liberate thousands from the prison of their own minds? Or was it a darker pursuit, a desire for knowledge that overshadowed compassion, an ambition to map and master the soul, even if it meant destroying it in the process? From the perspective of the patient strapped to the chair, the distinction is meaningless. The result is the same: the cure is a curse. The years fall away like dead leaves. Drive, Croft's electrical machine eventually falls out of fashion, replaced by new theories, new ambitions. The treatments inflicted upon Eleanor have left their mark, a permanent tremor in her hands in a fog that never quite lifts from her mind. She is no longer a candidate for cures, she is now part of the asylum as permanent architecture, a chronic case, warehoused and managed. She drifts through the long days, her existence pared down to the simple rhythms of the bell: wake, work, eat, sleep. The memories of her former life are like a story read long ago, the details blurred, the emotions distant. She is a vessel, emptied of herself. One cold autumn afternoon, a nurse hands her a letter. It is the first she has received in over a decade. The envelope is crisp, the handwriting unfamiliar. For a fleeting moment, a spark of an impossible hope ignites in the ashes of her mind. Arthur. Rescue. A mistake acknowledged. Her fingers, clumsy and stiff, struggle to open it. It is not from Arthur, but from his solicitor. The language is cold, legal, precise. It informs her that, due to the incurable nature of her condition, her husband has successfully petitioned the courts to have her declared civilly dead. He is now a widower in the eyes of the law. The letter closes by mentioning his recent remarriage and the birth of a healthy son. The last thread connecting her to the world, a thread she didn't even know she was still holding, has been decisively cut. She does not weep. The part of her that could produce tears was scoured out long ago. She simply folds the letter and lets it drop to the floor, another piece of a life that no longer belongs to her. Winter arrives, and with it comes the asylum's most efficient doctor, disease. The great, overcrowded wards, with their poor ventilation and closely packed bodies, are perfect incubators for infection. Tuberculosis, which the staff call consumption, is a constant, spectral presence. It moves silently from bed to bed, blooming as a persistent cough, a feverish sweat on a patient's brow. It is so common that it is considered a natural conclusion to a life of insanity. This is a brutal, historically grounded fact of asylum life. The mortality rates within these walls were staggering. Thousands died not from their diagnosed madness, but from the simple, communicable diseases that thrived in the environment of their confinement. Eleanor, weakened by years of poor nutrition and hard labor, finally succumbs. The cough begins as a faint rattle in her chest and quickly deepens. She is moved to the infirmary, a long, quiet room where the only sound is the shallow, ragged breathing of the dying. But here, in this last, desperate place, a flicker of the old Eleanor surfaces. She is not yet confined to her bed, and she finds a purpose. She helps the nurses, bringing water to women consumed by fever, dabbing a cool cloth on a burning forehead, holding a hand as the final breath shudders out. She performs these tasks with a silent, solemn grace. In caring for the dying, she performs one last, defiant act of humanity, a quiet rebellion against the system that has tried for so long to erase it. It is a final, tragic glimmer of the woman she once was. Her own decline is swift. The fever takes hold, and she slips into a state between waking and dreaming. The faces of the nurses blur with the face of the woman who died in the next bed. The stark white ceiling of the infirmary dissolves into the lace curtains of her old drawing room. There is no one to record her final words, no family to witness her passing. Her death, when it comes, is an administrative event. A nurse notes the time in a ledger. Case number 734. Deceased. Cause, phthisis. The final insult is not death itself, but the oblivion that follows. There is no funeral, no mourning. Her body, wrapped in a simple shroud, is placed on a wooden cart and wheeled out a back door. The cart trundles down a muddy track, away from the grand fade of the asylum, towards a desolate, windswept field at the edge of the property. This is the asylum cemetery. There are no headstones here, no angels carved from stone. There is only a vast, empty expanse of grass, dotted with hundreds of small, identical markers. Some are simple iron stakes, others are small ceramic plugs pressed into the earth. They are the fringe, forgotten detail of this entire system. Each one bears not a name, but a number. The final, horrifying twist of the asylum's logic is that even in death, a patient is not granted the dignity of their own identity. Eleanor's body is lowered into a freshly dug trench. A worker hammers a small metal plaque into the ground above it. 1192. It is her new, final name. How many souls lie in this forgotten ground? How many thousands were buried under numbers instead of names? The asylum's records are often incomplete, the ledgers lost or deliberately destroyed. The true scale of the death toll inside these institutions is a permanent, haunting mystery, a final question mark hanging over a century of so-called progress. The earth here keeps its secrets. The wind whispers over the numbered graves, carrying stories that no one is left to tell. The ultimate cure the asylum offered was to be forgotten. The great Victorian asylums still stand today. Many are derelict, their majestic facades crumbling, their long corridors silent for the first time in a century. Others have been converted into luxury apartments or sterile office blocks, their dark history papered over with fresh paint and modern fixtures. But their memory lingers. It lingers in the stories of the thousands who were lost inside them, people whose grief was mistaken for madness, whose nonconformity was diagnosed as a disease. They were the inconvenient, the difficult, the unwanted, swept from society's view and locked away in palaces of despair. This history is a chilling reminder of how fragile our definitions of sanity are, and how easily a system designed to care can become a machine of control. The line between healer and jailer, between therapy and torment, is terrifyingly thin. And somewhere, in a forgotten field on the edge of town, the wind blows over a small metal marker, number 1192. It is a testament to one life, and to the countless thousands of others, whose stories were erased by the very institutions that promised to save them.